Thank you for watching this week's episode, and also thank you to our sponsor for the week, Blinkist. Blinkist is a huge library of over 3,000 condensed non-fiction books on everything from career development to organization to economics and science, and when I say condensed, I mean condensed. Each blink is only about 12 to 15 minutes long and summarizes the main ideas and information from each book into more convenient and digestible pieces. Kind of like the videos you see on my channel that distill 60 hours of research, writing, and editing down to a 15-minute episode that gets the main point across. You can get one free blink per day on the Blinkist app, or if you really like the service and want to try the premium version for unlimited blinks every day, the first 100 people to click on the link in the description will get that unlimited access for 1 week to try it out, and you'll get 25% off the full membership if you decide you want to buy it. The 7-day trial is completely free, and you can cancel it at any time during that period if you don't think it's for you. So if you're interested in learning some new things and broadening your horizons without having to read dozens of books for hundreds of hours, check out Blinkist and see if you like it. And with that, let's get to the show. When it comes to drafting wide receivers, sometimes it's not about taking the best overall receiver on the board, but rather the receiver that's the best fit for what your team actually needs. Going into this offseason, it was obvious that the Eagles were going to take a receiver high in the draft. That was their biggest hole on the roster after all, but what was less obvious was which receiver they actually wanted. Denzel Mims, Justin Jefferson, and even the fleeting dream of landing CeeDee Lamb were all options that most Eagles fans considered. But very few, if any of them, ever thought they would end up with the player that Howie Roseman actually drafted, TCU's Jalen Reagor. Initially there was some surprise among the fanbase, and certainly some surprise from myself as well, but after spending some time going over Reagor's unique skill set and how he fits into the Eagles' offensive system as a whole, honestly, I think he was one of the best possible picks they could have made. You see, Philly was good at a lot of things last year on offense. They created favorable matchups for their two awesome tight ends, they were great at converting on third downs and maintaining long drives, and they were one of the very best teams at dominating in time of possession, despite their somewhat limited weaponry. In fact, believe it or not, the Eagles ran more plays per game than literally every other team in the league at 68.5, but they were only ranked 21st in yards per play at 5.2 because they had almost no explosiveness at receiver. Once Deshaun Jackson got hurt very early in the year, their deep passing game was almost non-existent, while conversely, in the one game where Jackson was fully healthy, Week 1 versus Washington, the Eagles averaged a whopping 6.1 yards per play on 71 total plays, which would have been elite numbers in terms of plays ran and yards gained per play if they maintained that over a full season. And I know that, sure, the Redskins' defense wasn't very good last year, but that's still a pretty crazy number all things considered. Jackson, and obviously now Jalen Reagor too, are the linchpins that make everything work for this team, because they both give this rather slow, methodical offense some quick strike ability that keeps defenses honest. And I don't just mean honest against the passing game either, because a true deep threat like Jackson or Reagor can also have a massive impact on the run game as well if their mere presence forces defenses into too high safety looks that give corners help over the top. Take this run from Jordan Howard as an example against the Bears last season. Chicago was in their standard match quarters look that they use against 11 personnel all the time, which means they have 6 defenders in the box against 6 blockers. Now, if you've got even numbers in the run fit, meaning 6 on 6, you have to be able to beat those blocks to still stop the run. You're never going to have a free tackler that can clean it up for you. The strong safety is way too deep to come down and get into the fit quickly, so if either of these defensive tackles lose, or if either of these linebackers shoot the wrong gap, there's almost automatically going to be a big run as a result. That's just how the numbers work. And conveniently enough, we can see that exact scenario play out here on the end zone angle when Roquan Smith is playing what's called cloudy or clear rules off of the 3-technique defensive tackle in front of him to determine what gap he needs to shoot. If his read is cloudy to the backside A-gap, meaning this 3-technique creates a pile of bodies in that gap and shuts it down, then Smith will fall back into the cutback lane and meet the ball carrier there. But if the gap is clear, meaning it's open like it is here, he'll try to shoot it and make a play in the backfield while relying on that 3-technique and the backside edge defender to cover the cutback lane for him. Obviously, he sees it's clear and he shoots it like he's supposed to, but unfortunately for Smith, Brandon Brooks gets just a big enough piece of him as he's coming through the gap to knock him slightly off track, so he can't get to Howard in the backfield. At the same time, neither the 3 technique nor the edge closed down the cutback lane either, and because the strong safety was deep in a too high alignment in quarters coverage, he's late getting down into the fit too, so Howard rips off an easy 12-yard gain. When defensive coordinators say that they always want to be +1 in the run game, this is what they mean. They never ever want even numbers in the box if they can avoid it, because having even numbers makes it that much harder to maintain discipline in your run fits. If possible, you always want to be +1 so that you have an extra unblocked body that can make the tackle at the line of scrimmage. However, that being said, if defenses then drop that safety down into the box and play single high looks to give themselves that +1 advantage, that's when Jackson's and Reagor's speed can punish them yet again by just straight up winning foot races against corners that have no help. That is the whole reason why speed is so important at the receiver position, because having a true game-breaking vertical threat can completely change how a defense plays against you. And by the way, since I'm sure some of you were thinking it, yes, I do realize that some of the plays I'm showing here are not completions to Jalen Reagor, and that's also part of my overall point about fit versus ranking, because I think Reagor needs a quarterback like Carson Wentz just as much as Wentz probably needed a guy like Reagor last year. When you go through Reagor's tape from TCU, his quarterback situation was not quite the same as what other top receivers in this class had. I know that his overall stat line doesn't look great for a first-round pick, 43 catches, just over 600 yards, only 5 touchdowns, but you've got to understand what Reagor was working with in that offense last year at TCU. It was, to put it politely, not ideal. Reagor did his job for the most part. He won on a lot of routes and would get open deep down the field every single game, but the connection with quarterback Max Duggan was just not there. I remember one play in particular against Texas where he was one-on-one outside against an off corner playing inside technique, and Reagor had the DB right where he wanted him. As the corner man turned towards the route outside, Reagor stemmed slightly inside into his blind spot to make the DB turn once again and lose track of him, and from there the route was won. The corner had no idea where Reagor was at that point, and all Duggan had to do was just put a lot of air on this ball and leave it deep, right at the boundary where Reagor could drift underneath it with nobody to contest him, but Duggan just didn't throw it. I don't know why he didn't throw it, because this was basically just free yardage here from a really good route, but he didn't. Instead, he rolled out of the pocket and ran for a short gain of 9 or 10 yards, rather than likely getting 40 or 50 yards, if not more, from Reagor. There was another one against Iowa State that Duggan at least did try to pull the trigger on this time, but the ball was placed so poorly that it made it impossible for Reagor to catch it anyway. Keep in mind that if you're throwing a go route against single high man coverage with a free safety nearby on the hash, like on this play, there's really only 2 places you can put the ball and still realistically expect a completion. Either A, you leave a lot of air under it like I said before, and drop it from a high trajectory right on the sideline where Reagor can track it and then drift outside at the last second to snag it Mario Manningham style, or since the corner has their back turned and is likely in panic mode, you can throw the ball on a line to the back shoulder and let Reagor turn and adjust to it that way. Either throw will work, especially with a receiver as good as Reagor, but instead, for whatever reason, Duggan did the exact thing you don't want to do, and he put it on a line and inside to the upfield shoulder where Reagor had to fight through a body just to get to the ball. Jalen still came pretty damn close to catching it, because he's really good, but these kinds of throws, or sometimes lack of throws, are indicative of what Reagor had to go through at TCU. According to Sports Info Solutions, the percentage of balls thrown towards Reagor that were catchable out of his total target share was only about 60%. That was 118th in the country, and the 3rd lowest overall in this entire draft class. While for comparison's sake, in Philadelphia, 83.4% of Carson Wentz's passes last year were catchable. That's a huge, huge difference. And don't get me wrong, the problems between Reagor and Duggan were not 100% on Duggan all the time. Reagor did have a little bit of a drops problem last year, but overall I would say the problem with Reagor's stat line was more to do with the coaching staff and the quarterback than just the receiver. When things went right, and when Duggan would give Reagor a great ball that he could actually adjust to, there was almost no stopping them together. Reagor showed that he had the ball skills and the deep tracking ability right up there with some of the other elite receivers in this class. But those opportunities were unfortunately way too few and far between for him to make a true impact from week to week. He's a much better receiver than the box score would indicate, trust me on that, and while his skill set may be rather narrow at the moment, it's still exactly what Carson Wentz and the Eagles need the most right now. With Wentz, Reagor, and Doug Peterson working together, all of their main obstacles to success from last year are now gone. For instance, in Philly, if Reagor is finding space in between zones and begging for the ball, Wentz will actually get it to him on time and on target for a first down, whereas at TCU, let's just say they struggled in that area. Or if Reagor runs an out route underneath a corner that is giving a huge cushion because they're so terrified of his speed, again, Wentz will be able to accurately get him the ball on time at the sticks, whereas Duggan would often not pull the trigger on that exact same throw. Reagor is about to enter an entirely new world where he has an MVP caliber quarterback throwing him the ball, and at the same time, Carson Wentz is about to enter an entirely new world where he has not just 1 or 2, but potentially 5 receivers on the roster who all run 4-4-3 or better, Reagor included. The Eagles knew what their missing piece to the puzzle was all of last season. Their lack of speed wasn't exactly a secret, and they also knew that their own quarterback was already the missing piece to Jalen's puzzle as well. When you look at the big picture, just like Howie Roseman did, the Eagles needed Reagor just like Reagor needed them, and that's what makes this pick such a perfect fit. Make no mistake about it, this truly is the dawn of a new era in Philadelphia. An era of speed and explosiveness and winning every track meet they show up to. An era where even if nothing is working and they're down by 17 points at home to a division rival, just like they were in week 1 of last year, they're still always just one play away from scoring. Maybe this is a bit crazy to say, but to me, it feels like Philly is finally back. And this time, they're taking their motto to heart. Fly, Eagles, fly.